Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're really pleased to be here at the Shape America virtual convention. I'm Mariah LaFleur, National Program Lead for Thriving Schools at Kaiser Permanente. And I really look forward to spending the next half hour, 45 minutes with you to share a little bit about us, our work, and specifically our resource that is planning for the next normal at school to keep students, teachers, and staff safe and healthy in this really challenging time. I just wanted to pause and start with a human moment and appreciation for all of you in whatever way that you touch and support schools. These are hard times. It's been a hard year, and your role in supporting students, families, staff, however you're doing that is really crucial. I personally have a first grader and a high schooler who are still in fully distance learning here in Oakland, California, where we live. And by here, I also mean right around the corner, so hopefully they won't interrupt me during this presentation. Now more than ever, I appreciate educators, teachers, everyone who's supporting them. And I'm a proxy teacher myself these days, so just really wanted to pause and say thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for taking time out to attend this convention and this specific session. So during our time today, I'll give a really brief orientation to Kaiser Permanente and our Thriving Schools work and team, and then really want to orient you to our Planning for the Next Normal at School Playbook resource. We'll take a deep dive into the physical activity and physical education chapter with our partners Carly Wright and Flora Daniel from my team. So you get to know that one specific section that's probably of interest a little more. And then I will give a quick overview of all the different Playbook chapters and discuss how you can take action and utilize. So for those who aren't familiar with Kaiser Permanente, let me give you a brief intro about who we are and why we work in school health. We are the nation's largest integrated healthcare system, which means that we provide both coverage and medical care for over 12 million members in 8 regions across the country that you can see there in that middle green box is where we're located. However, we have a national interest and scope. And so we specifically provide resources to all communities nationally, especially in the school realm. And specifically what I'm going to offer you today is available to everybody nationally at no cost. Also, as healthcare providers, as you would imagine, we're on the front lines of responding to COVID-19. We are providing COVID-19 testing, care, and now vaccines to our millions of members. And also just wanted to call out that we happen to be very well prepared as an organization, as a Thriving Schools team to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. We had a really strong telehealth option that has really taken off and improved. And we have a good consolidation and comprehensive approach to health that has proved very valuable in this challenging time. So some people may pause and say, well, why is a comprehensive integrated care management organization focused on schools? You may understand that, being folks who understand school and health, but this is specifically why Kaiser Permanente launched Thriving Schools about 8 years ago. We are a team within Kaiser Permanente fully focused on all the ways that we touch and support schools and districts. We understand that now more than ever, health and education are inextricably linked. You cannot separate them out, and they really, really influence each other. We also understand that school-based health interventions, whether they're happening in person, virtual, or in some sort of hybrid setting, are really critical for students and staff, and now even families, to be able to show up their best in whatever way school happens for them to teach and to learn every single day. And then finally, it really made sense for us when we realized that 20% or fully 1 in 5 of our own Kaiser Permanente members spends their day in some kind of school environment. And it makes sense when we think about there's no other environment where 20% of our members are all day, every day. That's why we wanted to create a whole team to support and focus on health in schools. So just one more slide on how Thriving Schools actually works. We support a variety of audiences and a variety of aspects of health, and we do it in a variety of ways. So first off, we've always had a really strong focus on school teachers and staff because they are our members. And we really understand that if they don't show up to teach well, school isn't going to be effective. So first off, they're important people in their own right, and also they are the way that students get the strongest support in school. So we've always had a strong teacher and staff focus, again, now more than ever with the pandemic and all of the ways that we are coming back from it. And then, of course, we do have quite a lot of resources to support students. We focus on a variety of aspects of health, and we really, in this year and going forward, are working on an integrated comprehensive health approach. And so we have physical, mental, and social health offerings, as well as a strong base in racial equity. And I just want to clarify by social health, I'll mention that in the chapter that we have around social health, but this is really getting at the factors in our environment and our community that allow us to be healthy, related to housing, job opportunity or lack of those things, food security, food insecurity. That's what we mean by social health here at Kaiser Permanente. And so the ways that we serve these folks on these topic areas, we're kind of on 3 different levels. First, we do have intensive support for a specific number of schools and school districts in our footprint, and this is sometimes direct technical assistance or some mini grants or direct support to schools and districts. But then we also create and offer resources free for all to everybody nationally. And that's one of the resources I'm going to highlight and share with you today. And then finally, we are members and lead some national conversations around school health. And this is to improve the policies, practices, systems of national school health. And we consider this kind of our movement building to support conditions that influence school health on the national level. So that's a little bit about Kaiser and Thrive in Schools and the team that has created this great resource. When COVID-19 happened about a year plus ago, we immediately realized we needed to ask our educators that we support exactly what they need. So we did a survey. This was done about a year ago, spring, early summer of 2020. And these are the key findings that came out. They really wanted clear instructions and guidance on what to do, from a trusted partner in health and education, such as Thrive in Schools at Kaiser. They wanted specific resources and support and how to navigate those things. And I think of these first 2, they wanted them to be, again, clear and direct, not something that is pages and pages long and complex and a lot to read, but support me in what I can do right now. Some specific actionable steps is what we really heard from our survey. And then a couple of specific topics that really floated to the top and I think are still there is support for staff in such a challenging time, and then quite a bit of support for mental health and well-being. And then also just time to process and adjust and work on all of this came through in our survey. So given those findings with our national survey, we answered by creating the Planning for the Next Normal at School Playbook. And this, I wouldn't say it started small, but we started with a few partners and pretty quickly realized, why not invite everybody who has, a seat at the table to participate and be part of this resource. So we ended up having over 30 national organizations work with us on this playbook, and I'll show you in a moment who all those organizations were. So we created the Planning for the Next Normal Playbook. It has 5 specific chapters, but also some other supporting documents. And these chapters, I say that lightly because they are brief, actionable, and kind of bulleted, quick sections, because we realize that schools don't have time. No one has time to read a lot of things right now. So that's really the way that we laid them out. These are the 5 different topics, many of them because they floated to the top of our survey, and we just knew from other data that it was really important for us to address. So mental health and well-being, that section is focused mostly on student mental health and well-being, COVID-19 prevention, physical education and physical activity. That's the one that we'll take a deeper dive in today because I think it's of special interest to the SHAPE convention attendees. Social drivers of health, and a whole section focused on staff and teacher well-being. And we wanted to pull out the staff and teacher well-being into its own section so it wasn't just an afterthought under the other topics. And that's something that Kaiser always likes to do, is really make sure there's a strong focus on staff and educators as a whole. So what makes this different than some other resources that were coming out at the same time and may have come out since? This really highlights different dimensions of health. It isn't focused just on prevention of virus spread, but thinks about all the different aspects of health. We realize that physical health is related to mental health, is related to the social health and the environments where you live or go to at the end of the day, or where you're taking school during the day if you're in school virtually. We really have a comprehensive approach in this playbook, and you can also go in and pick the different aspects of health that you want to focus on and just look at those sections if it's of interest. We really focused on duplicating what's already out there, and that was something we were able to do well because we had a lot of the other partners at the table. So for example, the COVID-19 prevention chapter, we don't duplicate much, we really point to CDC guidelines. So we didn't rewrite anything. What we did is collect it all in one place and point you to the national leaders in those specific sections. Another way that this is different, it offers 5 specific actionable plays for each dimension. This is your issue, start here. Pick a few of these or all of them and get right to it. And then finally, we think it's different because we had a broad reach of partners work with us on this, co-writing the chapters, reviewing, providing input. We just can't thank enough all of the different people. You'll see here on this pretty impressive slide, the different national school health leaders that worked with us. And it's really been a pleasure, and we've had various iterations and updates to the chapters and to the guide, to the playbook since it launched, thanks to all these great partners. So with that, I wanted to invite Carly Wright with Shape America, who helped co-write the physical education and physical activity chapter, who's going to be interviewed by my colleague Flora Daniel with Kaiser Permanente. So let's go over to them and we'll spend a little time diving more deeply into that chapter.
Today, I'm joined by Carly Wright, Vice President of Advocacy, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at Shape America, and co-author of the Physical Activity and Physical Education chapter. Welcome, Carly.
Thank you so much, Flora. Happy to be here.
Yes, we're so happy to have you with us today. And to start off our conversation, can you share a little bit about your background and expertise?
Absolutely. So yes, I work for Shape America, Society of Health and Physical Educators, and we are the national membership organization for health and physical education professionals all across the country. And I have the honor of leading our policy, advocacy, and equity efforts, and have the opportunity to work with health educators, physical activity leaders in schools all across the country to support the amazing teaching and work that they do, and work to be the voice at the national, state, and local level to improve policy and just engage stakeholders to get support for health and physical education programs.
Thanks, Carly. That sounds really exciting. Glad to have you here to talk a little bit more about the Playbook chapter as well as the 5 plays. So why is it important to include plans for physical education and physical activity as we plan to return to school?
Yeah, great question. During this time of COVID-19, with right now children home from their school buildings, and because of that, having reduced access to school grounds, to parks, to playgrounds, and safe places to be active, it's really important that we find new and innovative ways to support physical activity opportunities for all kids. And so physical education and physical activity provide so many benefits to a student's mental, social, and emotional health, in addition to the physical benefits it also provides. Participating in physical activity helps to decrease stress and anxiety, which, again, especially right now during COVID-19, is so important. It increases focus and concentration, improves self-esteem, academic performance, and fitness levels, and also prevents disease and injury, another thing that's incredibly important right now.
All right. Well, thank you for grounding us in the importance of physical activity and education, Carly. And before we dive deeper into the plays, I'd like to walk us through the 5 plays for the chapter. So the first play is required physical education instruction, make necessary accommodations, provide professional development, offer recess in person or virtually, and offer physical activity in person or virtually. So knowing that COVID-19 will change what physical education looks like this school year, why is it essential to continue physical education, whether in person or in a virtual learning environment?
Yeah, it absolutely is essential. because, physical education is an academic subject. We have to remember that. And it really does offer the best opportunity to provide physical activity to all students, to teach them the skills and knowledge that they need to establish and sustain an active lifestyle. So really during COVID-19, it is more important now than ever that schools prioritize physical education. Schools have that responsibility to support students in meeting the national recommendation of 60 minutes of activity per day. And physical education instruction really is the foundation of reaching that goal. Also, for students with disabilities, lower income students, or students who may live in neighborhoods where there just simply aren't safe outdoor spaces to play, school may provide the only opportunity for that student to access things like modified physical activity equipment that's specific to serve that student's disability, or access to a physical education teacher that is trained in modifying activities for each student's needs, and identifying activities that can be done safely inside a student's home or apartment, even with other siblings or family members around.
Great. And I know you've mentioned some of the challenges that COVID-19 has created for students to stay physically healthy. What are some accommodations to physical education schools can make to ensure safe and supportive learning environments for staff and students?
Yeah, there definitely are accommodations that have to be made, especially because of the physical nature of physical education and physical activity. But it really can be done safely. So it's important that school leaders consider things like the physical environment, like where is instruction taking place, both in person or at home? Are there things like proper ventilation? Are there any outside spaces available for instruction? Also considering personal hygiene and respiratory hygiene and face coverings. When are those appropriate during physical activity? Also equipment safety and sanitation, and instructional strategies for teachers, specifically for physical education teachers here. So for example, for in-person instruction, physical education teachers would focus on activities that do not require any person-to-person contact and also require just limited physical activity equipment. So these would be things like yoga, dance, fitness, outdoor pursuits, and kicking and throwing target games. And then for virtual learning, physical educators might focus on those activities that can be done in smaller spaces and that use equipment that can be accessed at home. If there's anything that I know about physical educators, they're incredibly innovative and flexible. And so, for example, we've seen teachers use rolled up socks as a ball and a laundry basket as a goal or a target. So while we're on this slide, I'd just like to specifically highlight one of the many links within the playbook where you can find more information. So if you click on that highlighted link there, it'll take you to the Shape America website. And we have a wide variety of resources here, specifically related to school reentry and COVID-19. So that will take you to a page with physical education activities for both physically distanced in-person physical education and distance learning environments. And then, for example, here, if you click on grades 3 through 5 under K-12 physical education distance learning supplement, you'll specifically find here standards aligned activities, grade level outcomes, and teaching strategies that teachers can specifically use while teaching physical education virtually. So we really encourage you, as you're diving into the playbook, to click around on these links to be able to find more information and resources to support you as you're implementing the plays.
Great. Thank you, Carly, for sharing some of those innovative strategies and accommodations. We're going to double click into some more resources and guidance that will help support the transition. So as schools and districts are developing protocols and trainings to create a safer return to learning, what types of professional development will physical education teachers need?
Yeah, professional development is always important and critical, and making sure that teachers are up to date with innovative best practices. Probably even more now during COVID, since models of learning will look different in a lot of areas. So it's important to remember that physical education teachers are the physical activity experts in the school building and should be included in any type of overall student and staff wellness efforts. Physical education teachers will also need professional development on equipment safety and sanitation to ensure that physical activity equipment that is used is safely disinfected. PE teachers should be involved in creating those sanitation protocols in order to ensure that schools are able to keep students and staff safe as these sanitation protocols are being implemented. Additionally, PE teachers will also need professional development on best practices for virtual learning, along with all the other subject area teachers.
Thanks, Carly. Can you share with us some strategies schools can activate to provide recess while promoting safety?
Yeah, absolutely. Recess should absolutely still be offered by schools because it does provide students with opportunities to engage in free play, additional opportunities to engage in physical activity, to practice those skills that they've learned in physical education class, and with those social interactions that are also especially important during COVID-19. So schools should evaluate available space within the school and also on school grounds for recess. It's recommended to use multiple locations throughout the school to reduce the number of students that are playing and participating in recess in any one area. Also recommended to limit the use of play structures when recess is occurring during in-school instruction. Physical educators can provide students and caregivers with guidance and resources to participate in daily physical activity, even when learning is happening from home. So this is another slide that has a link to some other additional really wonderful resources. This link here takes us to the Playworks website, where you'll find the Play at Home Playbook that they have put together that has activities and strategies to encourage physical activity to happen at home. There's also some really great resources, including video tutorials that walk you through how to play different games and specific recess activities that can be played at home with little to no equipment.
Great. Now, one thing we've definitely learned through this experience and this year is that, we're stronger when we work together. How can schools support educators and families with providing physical activity, whether in person or virtual?
Yeah, really great point, Flora. I think, incorporating activity breaks during classroom learning, really does provide more opportunity for physical activity, right? But it also helps to mitigate those feelings of stress and anxiety that might be brought on by COVID-19. It also helps to foster student engagement, especially as we're all heading back to school and beginning a new school year. Schools should, think about emphasizing movement, especially during transitions in the school day, and can do that by utilizing wall and floor signs and hallways, and also emphasizing movement at the beginning and the end of the day to really help to reestablish that routine for students. Also, physical educators and school leaders can provide caregivers with example activities that students and their families can participate even together in at home, even in small spaces with limited physical activity equipment.
Thank you for walking us through the plays and additional resources and strategies and tips just to provide physical education and activity in the learning environment, whether in person or virtually. So thank you for sharing that. And as we wrap, do you have any final thoughts to share?
Yeah, thank you. As we all work together to navigate this era of COVID-19, it's important to remember that social emotional learning and ensuring that we're teaching students those social emotional skills is probably more critical now than ever. And so physical educators really are on the front lines of the social and emotional learning movement. As students come back to school with that, potential collective sense of stress, anxiety, grief, and trauma because of COVID, physical educators are really those experts in school who are equipped to support students in developing those necessary social, emotional, and health skills during this time.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us, Carly. Really appreciate you walking us through the chapter and the plays and resources. And we encourage you to download the complete playbook, which includes resources that we've covered during this conversation, in addition to others, for physical activity and physical education, as well as for mental health and well-being, COVID-19 prevention, social drivers of health, and staff and teacher well-being. Within the playbook, you'll also find a printable checklist of all 5 plays for this chapter, as well as for other chapters. And we encourage you to print this checklist and use it to help track your progress and implementation of the plays. So please visit our website, Thriving Schools, at kaiserpermanente.org to access the playbook, as well as other resources that will support you during your planning for the upcoming school year. Thank you for joining us today, and take care.
Okay, thank you so much, Flora and Carly. It's really nice to get to know a little more about that specific topic area. Again, I know the Shape America attendees are real experts in physical activity and physical education. But with that, I wanted to make sure that we pause and you're aware of the other chapters that are rich in information and might be of interest as well. Maybe of more interest for some, because if you know PA and PE really deeply, maybe the other areas are worth diving into to learn more about what else we have to offer. So one of the, I'd say, most popular and most important other chapters is mental health and well-being. This has just been a critical issue from day one in the pandemic and will continue to be in the recovery and the years going forward. The key 5 starter plays focus on these topic areas: trauma-informed approaches and training, now more important than ever, and really time for social emotional skill building and mental health support services. One thing that we've heard and seen, again, however school is happening and as some return to in-person learning, really not jumping too quickly to academics, but allowing space to connect and process and just be is really, really effective and important at all ages of classrooms. So that space for social emotional learning and social emotional time in the classroom has been really critical, and this chapter really lifts that up. Another important chapter is COVID-19 prevention. Of course, this is critical, and this has been updated and improved as the recommendations update and improve, but really a lot of what this does is points to the quality CDC guidelines that are most current. So we have specific plays here as to how you can make sure you're implementing and supporting COVID-19 prevention in the schools. Some of it is specifically about preventing virus spread. That section really points to the CDC, but we also lift up things such as making sure staff and teachers feel supported and trained, and destigmatizing when a COVID-19 positive person is in the school community, and making sure that people feel open about sharing what's going on with them in COVID-19. This has been a really critical chapter as well. Social drivers of health, as I mentioned. When we say social health or social drivers of health at Kaiser Permanente, we're talking about all the different places that people live, work, eat, play, and learn, because oftentimes this is happening in the home as well. So this really starts with an open acknowledgement of institutional racism on all of the different systems that we live and work in, and how to begin to address the impact and be open in language around addressing and being direct with institutional racism that still very much exists. And it also includes plays around food security, enrolling families in Medicaid or CHIP to make sure they have access to medical care, connecting them to housing supports if they're maybe experiencing housing instability or homelessness, and then programs that may support the financial security and or economic and job opportunities. So this gets at a lot of what is happening outside the school, but definitely affects the school day when families are experiencing hardships in these areas. And then the final, maybe most important chapter, they're all pretty critical, are placed specifically to focus on staff and teacher well-being. This one has been very popular and utilized and shared pretty widely because staff and teachers have been going through a lot the way everybody has. And so I think a lot of districts have quite a bit going for students and their student support, but they're looking for more around how they can support their staff and teachers. And so really encourage you to go and check out this chapter if you're feeling the same. There's a wealth of important and informational links and resources there that can help get you started to support the adults that make schools run. Then we have some kind of wraparound newer content that was involved, it was launched with our kind of version 2.0 of our playbook. And these are strategies for funding a healthy school environment in this really critical time. We understand funding is what makes a lot of this possible. So we have that section co-authored with Future Ed. And then finally, recognizing that families needed to see themselves and we needed to make sure that we were connecting in families as much as possible. So there's a checklist to support parents and caregivers that was also co-authored by our Healthy Schools campaign partners. So that's just another brief overview of the other chapters in addition to the one that we took a deep dive into. But there's a wealth of information there and kind of, pique your interest in the other chapters. Also, in order to make this, again, actionable, quick, and doable, on the website where the playbook lives, there are printable and interactive checklists for each chapter. So you don't have to go into the actual chapter if you don't want to. You can just download this one checklist, or maybe if there's a couple areas of interest, if you really want to work on staff and teacher well-being and social health, you can download those couple of checklists and just get started with the team at your school or district. We wanted to make them, very easy to access. So those are all the different sections we have. And then finally, how to take action, how to put this into play, because that's really, our goal is making this easy to pick up and run with. First off, share it with your school and district leadership. You may be leadership, share it with your peers, share it with principals, share it with anyone who you think would be interested in these different factors. The link is right here. You can also just find it by Googling Thriving Schools Playbook, and you should be brought close to this page. Reach out to specialized instructional support personnel at your school, counselors, school nurses, folks that have that health lens at school. They have been very instrumental and excited to see these specific plays and the resource that we have them all packaged into. And then finally, think about allies and partners, community organizations, medical providers that you may have partnered with, your school-based, your school-based health clinic if you have one, to advocate for and support implementing these strategies. We've seen some PTU and PTA groups take this and really be able to, move some of the plays within their school, just knowing how busy some educators and teachers are. Sometimes parents are able to take and implement different pieces of these. So share with whoever you think might be able to put these into action in your school or in your school district. So that's a pretty quick run by of this great resource. Look forward to taking some Q&A next. Thank you so much for your time.